dial it back a little bit, play more coverage. And, like you said, like read my article, and Kyle Shanahan, what he talked about specifically today was, or no, excuse me, not today. Yesterday, he gave a piece of why he thinks Bosa's numbers are down. And he says, like, look, when the pass rush is good, our secondary isn't. And when our secondary is good, our pass rush isn't. So they're not in lockstep with each other. They're not playing complementary football in that sense. And to me, I think it makes perfect sense. Like the same thing with Bosa's comments. It's we're not rushing for, but because we're not having so much just playing like Loctite coverage and forcing them to try to like forcing the quarterback to hold on longer and try to scan, it gives us less time to operate to work with. I think I saw someone put a stat out there, which is not too significant. I think the Niners opposing quarterbacks against the Niners defense had 2.7 seconds to throw, and this year they have 2.5 or less. Which, like, oh, it's 0.2 seconds. It's like, yeah, but there's probably a couple games that are skewing it heavily, like the Rams game specifically. I bet you Stafford was averaged 2.1 because that's how fast it felt like he was getting out the ball that game. So, I mean, they're doing that because there's open leverages. I think that's part of the thing when you play man or just soft zone or something like that. And D'Amico had that issue too last year, right? How many times he would tell his receivers to play 8 yards off, and it's like, they're just going to keep throwing slants all day, D'Amico. Put them up there and then
walking down the field.
So, yeah, at that point, it's like, we got to mitigate those big plays and give our pass rush a chance. They're getting highly paid for a reason. Let them go earn it. So I think in that terms, like there's no problem blitzing a little more, but there's a time and a place for everything. If it's not working throughout the game, dial it back. And situationally, we got to be smarter. Maybe that'll free up Bosa and hopefully fix Wilkes' issue so far.
Can I ask you a question? When I was watching Kirk Cousins, it looked like he was calling the defense. Like he looked like he knew exactly where to throw the ball every single time. Is that just like a lack of disguises by Steve Wilkes? Is that something on film where his defense is like extremely predictable right now? Kirk Cousins didn't look uncomfortable once. He didn't get sacked, but even like if he had pressure in his face, it seemed like he knew exactly where the opening was going to be. Do Kirk Cousins just ball out, or do you think that that's something that maybe the Vikings picked up on film that potentially the Bengals could pick up if these things aren't adjusted?
Yeah, that's for sure something that they probably pointed out. Yeah, at least it played a little bit of factor, right? At the very least, film, and then also that Kirk probably has more trust from Kevin O'Connell that he probably has like a play or two or even 3 that he could audible to. So once he sees things, and that's why like offenses like to run motion, right? And I'm not sure if the Vikings really ran that much of it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's why offenses like to run a lot of motions, right? They like to see if the player's trailing to indicate is it man or zone or what's their alignment at or something like that. So there's probably some tells in film, and especially in the game where Kirk's probably checking the plays or he knows where he's going to go now from a hot read to a secondary, whatever the case may be. He has options. And, I think that's a little bit of lack of creativity. That goes back to Wilkes again and why Bosa's not getting there and other players not getting there. And then since this is a Bosa topic, I mean, where's Eric Armstead? Where are all these other players that are helping him? There's no
Hargrave?
help.
Like,
I mean, Hargrave has some sacks, but he kind of seems like he's more I don't think he sacked the quarterback in the last 2 weeks, but like the first 4 or 5 games, he probably has 3.5 sacks, which is solid. But it's like, where's everyone else at? I know Hargrave, though, I haven't looked in 2 weeks, but in defensive tackles, he was in the top 10. He might have been actually top 3, top 5 most double team defensive tackle in the league. So you have him along with Bosa.
I feel like that has to stop being an excuse. Like a lot of people give that for Bosa. Like they talk about how much he's double teamed. TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, all those players are double teamed.
And Bosa's learned. So it's not just him though. It's like, because I remember that happened. That was an issue last year or 2 years ago. And D'Amico Ryans actually said like, well, Bosa's got to figure it out. So it's part of Bosa, but it's also like, let's maybe flip Bosa to the other side. Maybe let's stun him more. Again, I don't know the numbers. Because when the play is going on, I don't typically just focus on the defensive line unless I'm watching it back. But like that also goes back to Wilkes as well. It's like, are you freeing up are you and Sarek doing something that's getting these guys alignment different? Are you stunning them, or what are you guys doing to just? It feels like they're just saying like, all right, line up, get after him, like figure it out. And it's like, okay, like the coaches are supposed to help. Like we said, put your players in a position to excel. And it doesn't feel like that's what's going on right now, which, of course, Bosa maybe, having that holdout is playing a part, which he admitted to, I think, yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, it's like, I'm
finally.
Still, which makes sense.
He should have some questions about that, I feel like.
It does make sense for sure that that's part of it. So I think it's like, it's not just 1 or 2 things. It feels like it's more like 3 or 4 or 5 things that's going on with everything. Yes. But again, none of you panic. They're 5-2. it's just again, it's bad loss because versus the Browns game, because like this one is like, dude, they didn't have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Look, I love Jordan Addison. He had not been a factor this season yet. You know, he's had drops. He doesn't look like he's running routes, and he went out there and just looked like if you had said that was Justin Jefferson out there, took the last name and number off, I would have believed you because that's what they made him look like, which is pathetic.
Lastly, when it comes to the defense, I wanted to ask you if maybe you would know why. The 49ers used to be a top 10 under both Saleh and D'Amico run defense, and right now they are 23rd, so bottom 10. And they added Hargrave this year, so why have they gotten worse? Is that the same explanation with the secondary front four? What's going on with that? Why can't they stop the run all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think I saw my boy Akash tweet the other day about like the Niners are dead last in run defense on third down, meaning like if you run the ball on third down, then they're going to get it, which, you know, if it's 3rd and 10, I doubt that's the case. But I think that just goes to show that they're not doing good on the early downs. You know, the running backs are getting like a good 3 to 5 yards and they're just mashing it. I think it's not anything that's going straight towards the middle either. It's always just like cut back into the C gap or go outside to the D gap. It's just a lot of just cut where there's some over pursuing. There's no ends holding on to things, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that plays a part in blitzing as well.
Is like out of sync.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit of lack of discipline, a little bit.
Not even a little. The 49ers, I feel like they've struggled with penalties on both sides of the ball. This is like off topic-ish, but I was so frustrated with the amount of like false starts that the 49ers had last game, coming out of the 2-minute drill, coming out of a
they called a timeout after a 2-minute drill, which is pretty embarrassing. It's like, you just had a timeout. What are you calling timeout again for? Yeah. Jim Harbaugh vibes, right? Like all the time. And that was one of the top 3 issues of that team. That was always like 3 delay games was a guarantee, it felt like.
Exactly. So not ideal with Nick Bosa and with that defense.